Hey folks, welcome to Friendly Orbit, the podcast that draws us together no matter how far we fly. I'm Ceres, the Darwin of narrative, and I'm joined by...
Thea, wildly different in print.
What are we
And
doing today?
today we are talking about adaptation, but not the evolutionary Darwinian kind. We're talking about adaptation of media to other
Ooh.
media. Yeah, very spicy topic. Maybe 10 years too late to the trend, but as we're watching the complete inflation of the media landscape and subsequent death of it, maybe we can look at the corpse of this trend and learn a thing or two from it.
The only reason that this episode is 10 years late is because it's an adaptation of the email I wrote 10 years ago.
Ignition sequence start. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. All engine running. Liftoff.
So, Ceres, I want to talk about adaptation because I have thoughts about it. And I think that, like, as I said before, we have collected over the last decade a lot of material to discuss this topic and to mature opinions that are not as straightforward as it's different from the source material.
Yeah, so for anyone who's been living under a rock, what is an adaptation, Thea?
So an adaptation is essentially a retelling of a story. You and like the adaptation implies that it's been somehow translated from one medium into another, and that can range. Like there's a wild range of like what does that mean? There's adaptation in genre. As in a story gets retold, but like what if it was horror, what if it was a comedy? But the ones that we're talking about more right now are more like, what if we took a book and we made it a movie or made it a TV show? What if we took a movie and made a TV show that retells the same story, or loosely based on the same concept? There's a lot of different ways that you can adapt something.
Mm.
For the purposes of the story, we'll roughly be concerned with the idea of adapting a story from one medium to another, as in from book to movie, from book to TV show, from movie to TV show, etc. Remakes do count as adaptation, especially when remakes, for example, like the Disney remakes, we go from animation to live action. But also in general, I think that the remake is kind of like a special case of an adaptation when you adapt a movie into a movie, for example.
Yeah, you adapt a movie into a movie using the movie technology you have 20 years later.
Yeah, and the aesthetic
And so it's
sensibilities
kind
of
of
the
a
audience.
slight medium shift, and it's an opportunity to update things or alter things.
Yeah, it's definitely also like a chronological shift in terms of the context, the cultural context that of the adaptation. So yeah.
But Thea,
So
why would you
yeah.
ever retell a story if it was already perfect the first time it was told?
Wow. Well, straw man we made up who doesn't correspond to anyone's real opinion. Let me tell you, you fool. The art of retelling and adapting stories is as old as storytelling itself. So I want to shoot this
What?
argument right in the foot, because the first form of storytelling was the oral tradition, which was entirely based on retelling. And if someone in ancient Greeks had said, "Well, we told the story of Ulysses once. There's no need to retell it," then we wouldn't have the Iliad and all the Homeric epic poems, because that's how they got to Homer. They were being retold a lot. And Shakespeare didn't come up with any like. I think none of Shakespeare's stories are like originally just like birthed from his head. They're all based on pre-existing works and like folk tales.
Yeah, so from the peak of the Dunning-Kruger curve, because I'm not an expert on this, I just know experts on this, I'm pretty sure basically what it is that in Shakespeare's time, the originality of a tale was not particularly highly valued, as it is today. Instead, it was the execution of the tale that was most highly valued, which is why most, if not all of Shakespeare's stories have echoes in stories that were told before, but his version was by far the most popular version of those stories that lasted throughout history to us, in part because his method of adapting and telling the story made them so much better.
Yeah. And there are other cases like this if you want something that people might be a little bit more familiar with. Ceres, what do you think that The Hunchback of Notre Dame is about?
Wait, I just love that. Something that they're more familiar with than Ulysses and Shakespeare?
Yes. Well, it's something that they might have actually, like, I don't know how many people have actually watched Hamlet. I've watched Hamlet.
No, that's what I'm saying. Those are like very I doubt most people have actually spent time reading, Homer's work or whatever. All right, The Hunchback of Notre Dame. Yes, so this is one that you've told me before, but to be the straw man, The Hunchback of Notre Dame is a animated movie story about hunchback and acceptance and the Roma community in France, and there's a big cathedral.
Yeah, so not at all. Victor Hugo was originally very concerned with the state of like disrepair that that Notre Dame was in, and so he wrote a story about essentially human pettiness contrasted with the magnificent glory and like immortality of the Cathedral of Notre Dame. And the Romani,
and he didn't like Roma people.
He did not like Roma people, and we know that he didn't like Roma people because at the end it turns out that Esmeralda, our traditionally like social justice heroine for the Romani people in the original work, is actually a Christian baby stolen from her crib by Romani people. Huh.
Yeah, I know. This is a story you've told me before, but it is a great example of how adaptation can make something better, more appropriate for a new time, and to make the moral of the story just better, right? And nicer, and be like, look, this guy was, being xenophobic, right? It's nice that we can update it, change it, and turn it into something, better.
Yeah, the modern narrative of the Hunchback of Notre Dame was born in the 1930s at an movie adaptation that was brought to the Cannes Festival by French filmmakers to protest the rise of fascism, especially in Germany. And so they made this adaptation which focused a lot more on the plight of the outcasts. And so the Hunchback of Notre Dame movie by Disney is much more an adaptation of that movie than it is of the original work.
And I think an important note of something that you said earlier, right, is that it is a fairly, on the scale of human civilization, it's a fairly modern idea that you can record a story perfectly and there's no need to alter it in order to experience it again.
Yeah.
Right.
And even then,
we have
I would argue we still, there's still, even the fact that you can record it perfectly doesn't mean that it's not worth retelling and revisiting, right?
Right. I mean, the idea is even a theater performance that's done one Friday and is done again the next Friday, right, will be slightly different between the two. A movie released in 1989 and a movie released today, even if it's the identical movie being released, will have different receptions, different impressions. Things will be interpreted in a different way. So, I'm just saying, I think it's sort of a modern thing that because we have like books and movies that kind of, when you hit play, it's the exact same information being presented to you, evoke this idea that stories are sort of set in stone, that, this is the one telling of the story, and it's sort of done, right? Whereas, if you look sort of at an older view of it, in order to experience a story, you have to retell it. And on larger timescales, I think that effect exists too. In order to understand a text that was written long ago, you're going to have to translate it. And that translation will always carry some amount of interpretations because words don't just track one-to-one,
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. So, I have now some considerations that I think that I think are all relevant thoughts to have about adaptation that I've organized in a numbered list.
Cool.
Yes. So, part one, respect the legacy. So this is kind of about the idea that when you make that you should respect the original material, and like how much and when is up for us to discuss now. Because I think personally that while changes are necessary, there is a degree of respect for the original material that is warranted, kind of for the following reasons. First, especially in the era where storytelling is almost entirely capitalistic, so you're offering it as a product for a price,
Mhm.
you are leveraging the original work as a reason for people to come see it.
Yeah.
And so fans have certain
That's why it
expectations
happens
that you
so much
think.
today.
Exactly. And so people, like the fans that come to you to watch your movie, your adaptation of their beloved property, I think have a right to be disappointed if they feel like what you're doing is wildly different from the original work, because they came and paid to see their thing,
Yeah.
and you are more successful for leveraging a known existing property instead of starting from scratch. So
Yeah, I
this,
mean,
I
you're
think,
telling them basically, hey, do you like the original version of this or some other version of this that exists? Well, we're making a new version of this with all the bells and whistles. And I think if you like that, you will like this, right? And that's the sort of promise that you're making. A
yeah,
promise of
exactly,
similarity, right? Because you like grandma's mac and cheese, you're going to like mom's mac and cheese because she uses the same recipe, right? For example. And if mom puts down spaghetti in front of you with tomato sauce, that may be a perfectly good dish, but the promise that this was just like grandma's mac and cheese has been violated, right? So there's a certain
exactly,
audience expectation, there's a certain promise, and you got people out of their homes, you got them out of their life, you got them to pay money, you got them to sit down in, for example, your movie theater. You owe them something, right? Because you get quite a lot out of the promise. You owe them something in exchange.
yeah, exactly. And like I think two recent examples for this, to not go immediately to like the great ones like Tolkien, the
Mm-hmm.
difference between the Fallout show and the Halo show, both
Mm-hmm.
adaptations of video games with a very unique world and like style that is immediately recognizable, a
Mm-hmm.
very unique flavor of like respectively like retro sci-fi and future and like just like straight up usual like military sci-fi.
Biblical sci-fi.
Exactly, biblical sci-fi, right? And like
No, I mean it is
Fallout,
just sci-fi.
yeah,
I'm
I
just
mean
joking. They're
Fallout
also great to
is,
compare because the original games shared like a time, right? Like
yeah,
the original games were popular in the same era and popular amongst the same audiences. So, it's a great comparison to make, just because people who have played one have probably played the other, and if they've heard of one show, they've probably heard of the other.
exactly. And Fallout has done a great job. I mean, I personally haven't played the games, but everyone, like, I haven't heard people complain if about the show in terms of like it's not faithful enough to the source material, except for a couple of people, but like really like a couple of people, and like you can't avoid it, right? But there's not like a
Mm.
systemic angry response that is this is not like the source material. Mostly just like they're angry because there's a woke trans man in the
Yeah, I mean, I like
in
my
the Brotherhood of
perspective.
Steel.
My perspective is it's hard for me to judge just because I didn't play the games and I only watched one of the shows, but I have generally not heard as much negative about Fallout. One of the reasons, and I think this will play into a later point of yours, so I won't talk about it too much yet. But I think there are other reasons also that Fallout is a good adaptation, not just that it's accurate. But from what I know of the lore, the limited amount I know of the lore, and what I saw, it's like this seems to be a Fallout show, right? This doesn't seem to overtly contradict anything that's been established. It seems to express some of the same themes. It has the artistic design is the same, right? So
Yeah. Yeah, exactly, right? Like you came here to see scavengers and to visit different vaults with weird different experiments going on. You want to see the retro futuristic suits of armor of the Brotherhood of Steel, and you want to see how like 1950s like cynical like faux optimism and like capitalistic greed eventually leads to this apocalypse, and that's what they served us.
Yeah.
And the Halo show did not exactly do that, because the Halo show, like the Halo, generally is about the existential threat of a genocidal, quite literal covenant of alien races united by a zealous, a zealous mission to reclaim ancient artifacts of a precursor race, and their genocidal tendency to desire to destroy the human race, like wipe them from existence, and the struggle of humanity against this incredible, overwhelming force.
Yeah.
And instead, the show is a character drama between Spartans because they didn't have the budget to put the aliens in for more than 2 scenes.
Yeah. And I what I've also heard is that it's like not very um faithful in terms that like the way the aliens are portrayed and the way that the main characters are portrayed. Like I don't want to give spoilers because I think what I heard was a spoiler, but basically, and I think this is when you get really to the extreme end. The air of Halo is that the people who make it sort of have a disdain for the source material and don't particularly care for it, which is something that was also sort of bandied about with the Witcher series. And I think
Yeah.
that that's something that generally, as an adaptation, you need to avoid. Like that's an indication that this isn't the right person to adapt it, because I don't know if this is just like adapting anything. You have to start in good faith, right? Like if you just
Absolutely.
start out mocking what you're adapting, then you're just kind of being mean. And unless the thing that you're mocking is truly awful, like Nazis, then sure, like in that one scenario, sure.
Yeah,
But
I
like
mean, Starship
if
Troopers is a good movie because of it. Is a better movie because of the disdain for the source material.
yeah, like I think, they're generally speaking, the purpose of an adaptation, right, is to take something that had a kernel of goodness, or maybe more goodness, but at least a kernel of goodness, and then adapt it for a modern audience and make it better, right? If you already start out disliking it, then there's very little reason to start with this. Well, why don't you start with an idea you do like? Or if you have to adapt something, why don't you adapt something you do like?
Yeah, in the show, like about the Halo show, I haven't seen it, so I'm criticizing the choices that I'm aware of, but I'm not going to go into like the writing or like the dialogue and stuff like that because I haven't seen it. I haven't
Mm-hmm.
heard good things about it, but I haven't seen it, so I will not express an opinion about that. But I absolutely agree with you. And on the topic of the creators, I have like looked into it, and yes, the creators have said that basically like they didn't play the game and they disregarded the games and they only focused on like the lore and the world and the characters, and then like started from those to write a story. And I think that that's really telling because I think that, I mean, I completely agree with the idea that you can't just adapt the Halo games. You can't just adapt them because the Halo games are not The Last of Us.
Mm,
They're not a sophisticated character drama with themes and character development going on.
mm,
But maybe even more because of it, because you have to come up with a new story, a different story. Playing the video games is important to understand what do people like about this that I need to transfer into my story. Because
yeah.
with The Last of Us, paradoxically, you can just read the Wikipedia summary if you really want to and still get like the story, and the story will be like good. Of course, playing the game is important, and the people who made The Last of Us did a good job with that. But even if they haven't played the video game, just reading through the plot of The Last of Us is already a solid starting point that the Halo games are not. You need to play the Halo games to understand why people like this.
Yeah, it's like being like, well, I read up on how this entertainment product works, and there's steel rails in the ground, or I mean, they start in the ground and then they kind of go up, and you have a cart. It sort of moves along the rails, and then it sort of comes back to the starting point again. And it's like, yeah, but that's not just reading that doesn't encompass the feeling of being on a roller coaster, right? Like
Yeah,
you
exactly. It's
need to
like
be on it. You need to feel the feeling to realize, oh, this is the moment at the tippy top of the mountain at the start of the roller coaster. That is an important moment. That is something I should communicate in my adaptation of roller coasters, right?
Yeah, based on the description you just gave me, like the person then would go on to build their version of the roller coaster, and it would just be a subway.
Yeah, and it's like you have to see it in action to understand how all these framing elements, which is the lore and narrative, produces the experience in the game that connects to the audience, which is, I presume, not having played much Halo, a lot of sick ass action, right? I mean,
Yeah.
I would assume, based on the little that I've played, that the ideal Halo show involves at least a few scenes with Master Chief and like 50 aliens, and the aliens are losing.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely, and it should involve, like, the main conflict should be driven by humans versus the Covenants, right?
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't have to be Master Chief slaughtering aliens for 40 minutes an episode. Like, that should be the main conflict, right? But like, apparently the main conflict is about Master Chief coming in conflict with the UNSC, being a chosen one with visions, and then there's a side plot that takes up 30% of the show about just like a set of brand new characters fighting over the independence of a planet from the UNSC, which is like the United Nations like military equivalent here.
Isn't it United
And
Nations Security Council?
yeah, I think you're right. I don't know it by heart. Like,
Yeah,
I have played
I
the
think it's
Halo
literally
games,
the
but I've
vision
not.
of humanity is that the United Nations Security Council, which is an organ of the United Nations that we have today, arguably the most powerful, eventually becomes like the world government in this setting,
Yeah,
I think.
exactly. Yeah, and there's an entire subplot which is just like an original character, an independence fighter fighting the United Nations Security Council for the freedom of our planet. And the bad guy of that subplot is like a United Nations Security Council like general who is just like a Nazi.
Mm.
And like, so it's a bunch of like
So it just like has
brand new
nothing to do with
characters.
what Halo
It
is
has
about,
nothing
right?
to do with what Halo is about. All the characters are new. The planet is new. They didn't take an iconic planet or anything.
Yeah.
And also, it's incredibly idiosyncratic because as I was reading the summary of the plot, I was like, in half of the story, the United Nation, the UNSC is kind of like not the good guy, but like definitely more of a force for good than for evil, but it's still like not to be fully trusted because sometimes they're a lot like the type of government that does the ends justify the mean kind of like
Exactly.
calculation to
That's my
save
experience
humanity.
too, right? I mean,
Yeah.
isn't the process of creating Master Chief and the Spartans like him really actually kind of horrific? And like,
Yeah,
don't they
there's like
steal these
4 or
children and
5.
replace them with clones who die of terminal illnesses then? To sort of like hide
Yeah,
the fact that they've stolen these children and then sort of modified them as they grow up so that they can work with power armor better and stuff like that.
basically like the lore is very curious because the Halo games are not too concerned with the morality of the UNSC
Mm,
post invasion of the Covenant,
yeah.
because to them it's always it's like, the humans are the good guys in the war. But there is this character,
It's like the
Professor.
UNSC doesn't want to be doing this, but on the brink of extinction,
Yeah.
they're trying to keep
And
the
there-
humans alive, right?
Yeah,
By
and
any
there's
means
this
possible.
character, exactly. There's this character, Professor Halsey, who is like this old woman who has been leading the entire Spartan project. And there's been several generations of Spartans, and different generations of Spartan were partially defined by how they made them. So, like, I don't remember which generation it was, but yeah, there was a generation where the children were made as you just described.
Mm-hmm.
And she's always portrayed as kind of like a very morally ambiguous person, right? But like,
Yeah.
she's never the focus of the game. She's more of a side character. And like, the fact that the Spartan program also was started not to fight the Covenant, but to like suppress civil unrest within the UNSC, like to kind of suppress the type of planets that like the B plot of the Halo show is kind of like portraying. So I can totally see how the writers looked at all this lore and decided that this was going to be their plot, but also that's all like background knowledge that is not
That's
that
all
never
not
comes up in
relevant.
the games.
Yeah, exactly.
That's not what
The
the games
games
about
are
at all.
still Master Chief soloing 50 aliens, right? And like
Exactly.
beating their faces in with his power armor elbow, right? It's
Yeah.
like Doom Guy versus aliens instead of Doom Guy versus demons.
Exactly. That's exactly it. So yeah, all of this to say, respect the legacy, and I do think that like there is an inversion. There is like like the proportion to how much you need to respect the legacy is like proportional to how much the like with
How good it is.
the status, the good it is, but also how popular it is and like what status it has. Because we will talk about later, there are adaptations of things that you wouldn't even know they're adaptations.
Yeah,
And
I think that's definitely. I think that's definitely true. You have to also know why you're adapting it, right? Sometimes it is really for the legacy. Sometimes it's just for the idea. Somebody wrote something that was cool and maybe was like moderately popular, but never a breakout story. And you think it could be a really big story just because you think it's a well done story and there were factors at the time or of the medium that limited it, you know, in ways, and you want to bring it to the big screen. Then you're really not promising. You're not getting people there based on legacy. You're getting people there based on the merits of the adaptation itself. So then you have like more freedom to sort of take the good parts and leave the bad parts. And yeah, I agree. If the legacy is kind of not very good, right, then you can also like you can change more and alter more. Because I think at the end of the day, the philosophy is, first off, I think adaptation is a very nuanced, difficult thing. But I think the general philosophy is you need to change. You want to change as little as possible, but as much as necessary. And that is a difficult balance to tread, right?
Absolutely.
But Halo could have been a heavy action, little bit of adventure show. A concept that's been executed a million times successfully, right?
Yeah.
It didn't need to be. It didn't need or deserve to be gutted in that manner.
No.
I want to throw a brief moment also like why people do this, right? One of the reasons is that only adaptations get made anymore, basically. And so if you have an original story you want to tell, it's often like you end up stuck. Like it can happen that people get stuck with an adaptation they don't really want to make because they would rather make their own original story, but they can't get funding for their own original story. So they kind of just write their own original story and then slap the brand of the adaptation on it. And obviously it's like, how does Ceres know this, right? And like, it's a very nuanced situation. That's like a difficult, broad claim to make, but it is something I've heard authors like talk about in their own media. Like Brandon Sanderson has a story about this where somebody pitched, right, one of his novels as a book, or sorry, as a TV show, and it was just like it had, or a movie, I can't remember, but like it was completely different. It was like, you know, the original book that he'd written was a sort of two characters in a box book, right? Like there's no outside world. They're both locked in this room, just interacting with one another for the whole book. And what the sort of thing that was handed in as the adaptation was like a world romping sci-fi fantasy adventure with time travel magic and exploring all these different cultures. And it's just like, you know, I mean, what are you supposed to say then other than, yeah, exactly. What are you supposed to say then other than you had your own original idea and you're looking for a budget, right?
Yes, exactly. No, absolutely. And yeah, I mean, you want, like, of course, it sucks for those who want to tell original stories.
Yeah, so there's a little bit of sympathy out there, but the answer really isn't make a bad adaptation.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. What if Master Chief was about ballet?
Exactly, right? Like,
yeah. Like, sir,
if you have an excellent ballet story, I'm really sorry you can't get it pitched. But don't put Master Chief in a tutu. Sir, that's not going to be a success either.
Yeah, your screenshot, your screen, what's it called? Your screen, like your
Saber.
screenplay is clearly titled "The Black Swan," and you just scratched it out and wrote Halo just above it with a marker pen.
Halo
It's
Season
clearly
2 question mark?
Black Swan. Yeah. All right, let's move on to part 2, a different medium. So sometimes, as you said, changes can be necessary to tell the same story, but in a different medium. And here I want to bring up the holy grail of adaptation, Peter Jackson's Lord of the Rings.
Necessary to mention in any conversation about adaptation.
Yeah, you can't, right? But I'm doing my best to like bring it up only once.
Okay, let's hear it.
And this is where I bring it up. Yeah, so the Two Towers, as a starts with Boromir's death, with Boromir being killed, and then the Fellowship splits up, and then we follow Aragorn, Legolas, and Gimli for half of the movie until the Battle of Helm's Deep, and then we cut, and then the book restarts, and we follow Frodo and Sam for the second half of the book.
Yeah.
And then the book ends.
Yeah.
And that's how Tolkien chose to write it. And I'm not sure why he chose to write it like that. But
I think it's just because it can be hard to switch focus that many times between different groups of characters. However, only switching focus one, when I read it at least, did create the effect of a little bit of loss of memory. Like a little bit like, what were they up to again? What was going, who's where? You know? Because it's been half a book since you've heard from this individual.
Yeah. But a great thing with books is that you can always go back and check. There's something you can't do with movies. And also, it had been 50 years since the publication of Lord of the Rings when The Two Towers came out. By the way, I want to say, shout out to like a New Line Cinema in Jackson for letting the title of the movie stay The Two Towers after 9/11.
I wonder if that actually was a negative impact.
I think that they definitely must have. It was certainly an impact, let me tell you that. But I wonder if like I can imagine the writers' room or like the executives shitting their pants as Peter Jackson insisted, no, it's gonna be called The Two Towers.
Yeah.
So Peter Jackson essentially shuffled the structure of the first book and took the fight that is at the beginning of the book and put it at the end of Fellowship to have a big final climactic fight. Essentially to make the story fit more the movie medium, and specifically the movie medium in America at the start of the 21st century. We expected the fantasy action epic to end with a big fight, and we expected if there's an A plot and a B plot or two A plots, because honestly I think that Lord of the Rings, like the Two Towers, has two A plots, not an A and a B plot, then that we have two plots that we keep switching back and forth. That's how movies are made, and Jackson decided to do it that way, and it was, I would say with a 99% confidence, it was for the better.
Yeah, no, I mean, I would agree.
Have the other version. Yeah.
Right? Like, I think, related to what you're saying, I think in our time, it has become a sort of a buzzword kind of thing to say nothing was changed about the original, or like it was super faithful to the original. All of these things from the original are here, right? It's kind of like the no CGI of our time. And it's like, but
no CGI
it's like
time is no CGI.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like one of those criticisms that's completely superficial and ignorant, I find, of like with CGI, of how movies and TV shows are made, and in terms of the other, as how adaptations are made. Like, change is integral to adaptation. If you're not going to change the story at all, there's literally no reason to do it. Then just do a new printing of The Lord of the Rings with a nice new cover or something and hand it to audiences, right? Then don't change anything at all. The idea that any modification...
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. The idea that any modification would be a detriment, right, is ridiculous because times change, narratives change, but most importantly, mediums change, right? And what works in one medium doesn't work in another. The same way that, like, CGI isn't a bad thing. CGI often looks amazing and is often the selling points of movies. You wouldn't go back and be like, Jurassic Park is such a bad movie because of all the CGI in it. But
Yeah, I
you
wish
know,
I
that was
wish
the
that they
big
had
reason
made.
it was a good movie. That's what fucking sold the movie to people, right?
Yeah, exactly. Same with like The Matrix. It's like
Yeah.
that's
Oh, that's
not really
actually
near
an
the.
even better example, probably, because the fact that it's CGI is more obvious to audiences. I think sometimes people think like the original Jurassic Park was just like all puppets and animatronics, and it's like no, they use CGI too. But yeah, so like the point is just people like bad CGI. They like changes that are made for no reason or changes that are detriments to the plot. But it kind of gets lumped into this sort of any change is bad, any CGI is bad. And neither of those are true. And I think anybody who knows, like anyone who makes movies or knows stuff about making movies or critiques movies knows that this is true. So I just want to get it out of the way. It's one of the baseline criticisms that you hear about an adaptation that I find is often baseless and shows kind of like just a little bit of like not a lot of experience on the part of the person who's making the critique. It's like, oh, well, they changed an element of it, right? If they say, oh, they changed an element of it and it ruined this for me, I think that's a valid criticism. But when people are just like, oh yeah, and they changed everything, it's like,
Mhm.
well, maybe they needed to change things though, right? Like that's inherent. So I just want to get that off
Yeah,
my chest. And I think
yeah,
what you mentioned, right, is an example where like a book medium and a movie medium are just different. In a book, you can be like, book 2, focus on these guys. Book 3, focus on these guys. In a movie, it's kind of like these are just two different movies at that point.
yeah, and yeah, absolutely. Um,
How about this? To be
so
more faithful to the original, Peter Jackson makes The Lord of the Rings, the first tower, and Lord of the Rings, the second tower. Just split it by tower. Easy peasy.
yeah, perfect titles. Sir Peter Jackson has released the second tower. You know the picture of George W. Bush when they're like, "Sir, a plane has hit the second tower."
Yeah.
Sir, Peter Jackson has released the second
Let's
tower.
just do the whole trilogy like that. We'll call Lord of the Rings, the first part, we'll call it the Fellow, and then the ship, and then the first tower, and then the second tower, and then the Return, and then the King.
Yeah.
Best titles
And the
ever.
sequel, no towers.
No towers.
So I
You
had
just
also
imagine if
another.
all of the Lord of the Rings was named relative to the number of towers that appear in the book.
Yes. Fellowship of the Ring, I guess one tower, but not for very long. That's the title. The Tower of Amon Hen. You know where
Yeah.
they
Isn't it
is it
Amon
Amon Hen?
Sul? You
Amon
fake
Su, yeah,
fan.
Amon Su, a fake fan. Which one is Amon Hen? There is an Amon Hen.
Okay. I don't know it because
Okay,
I'm a
anyways,
fake
yeah,
fan.
the Tower of Amon Su. Yeah.
Yeah.
Then the two towers.
And
then
then
how many towers are there in the third one? There is Isengard again, but for not
yeah,
very
like
long.
the third one is kind of like the two towers, but one of them falls at the end. Spoilers.
Yeah, and the first one isn't really relevant.
It's a long title, but it fits the scheme of all the others.
Yeah, and then it's like ... Oh wait, there's the tower in Minas Tirith. That's pretty important.
That's a big tower. That one counts.
That one counts. The three towers or two, depending how you want to count them. Anyways, one of them
Exactly.
falls for sure.
But I won't tell you
Which one?
which.
Let's find out.
This is
the
like
movie.
this like two brothers. The book.
Yeah. Yeah. The movie. And hey, you know what is instead a great adaptation of a story where the story was preserved, but there were massive changes done, and you and I have both read the book and watched the show, and we both gave it a big thumbs up.
I don't know,
Do you know
Dune?
it?
I haven't read
No.
Dune, so that's a bad guess,
Also,
actually.
it's a TV show. Yeah.
Give
Also,
me
it's not a TV show.
give me a moment to consider. I actually have no idea.
You
I'm
have no
stumped.
idea?
You
Okay.
got me.
We sat down watching the show being like, oh boy, I hope they did a good job. And then we watched it and we watched 3 episodes and we're like, damn, that was great. You know
Oh,
what?
is this Three Body Problem?
Yeah, Three-Body Problem.
I got there. I was on Game of Thrones, and I was like, maybe Thea thinks I watched Game of Thrones, but I haven't. And I was
No.
like, I was
Also,
having
they
a
didn't
hard
do
enough
wild
time.
changes. Also, they didn't do wild changes to Game of Thrones. The first
And then I
seasons
was
are very
like,
faithful.
meme value, say the Rings of Power. Which we both think is a terrible show, by the way.
Yeah. It's
So
funny. The
yeah,
Rings of Power actually has one thing in common with the Three-Body Problem adaptation. In both situations, they were like, we need to adapt this with this wide spawning epic where characters and protagonists that keep changing,
yeah,
and it's all kind of staggered, and the timeline is crazy long. How do we do this? And for both adaptations, the answer they gave was, what if they all happened at the same time though, and all the characters knew each other?
yeah. So this is an important. So
And
if you don't know the Three
Three-Body
Body Problem, it's a
yeah,
sci-fi series written by Cixin Liu. It's about Earth encountering. Well, actually, that's spoilers. And if you are interested in hard sci-fi, I think you should read this. So without giving you any spoilers, it's about Earth moving into a brave new future. That is very different and causes a lot of challenges and difficulties. And throughout the books, you see Earth move through this unfolding galactic sort of crisis. You see it unfolding over hundreds of years. And so that necessitates cryogenic freezing, but B, just a flux of characters, right? Characters who are born in the new times, characters who are born in the second book, characters who are born in the times of the third book.
yeah.
And
I
as a
think that
TV
the
show,
author does
obviously,
really well. Yeah, I think that the author does really well, and I think helps both the TV show but also the books. Is that all of its main characters mainly are born in our time, like they're born roughly in our age, and they all get cryogenically shot into increasingly further into the future. So
yeah,
every time he has these like relatable characters who are fish out of water, and then people explain to them what this era of the
yeah,
future is like. And the show leverages this fact by saying like, okay, all these guys start in the same period of history roughly, and then they all get scattered via cryogenic sleep. Well, I have an idea. What if they all knew each other? What if they were all
yeah,
friends from college?
yeah. And it also, what's interesting also, and this is an alteration I'm not sure is good. Maybe not a good time to mention it, but an interesting thing Three Body Problem does is it also makes everyone not Chinese.
that is surely a choice.
Well, from what I've heard of like Brandon Sanderson talking about how unwilling Hollywood executives are to hire Asian actors to play his characters in the Stormlight Archive, I'm pretty sure it's because just like English speaking Western-ish studios are just like, we can't make a cast of all Chinese characters, Western audiences won't watch it. And we want them to watch it.
Yeah, that sucks.
Yeah, which is like, but then why? Of course, there will never be precedent. You know, like of course there will never be precedent for a Western audience watching a show with all Chinese characters that's still filmed in English and still made by Netflix or something like that. If you never make it, right? Like if you never take the shot, then of course you'll never have precedent for that argument.
Yeah, but again, why risk it? It's money.
Why risk it? Let's just make them all British, mate.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean, I kind of liked, I mean, if they had made them all British, that would have like sucked big time, but they didn't make them all British. They created a cast of kind of like people from all over the world that, yeah, they all studied in Great Britain. At least it's not America, but you know, the most default. But they have like a Mexican one, a Chinese one, British ones, and so there is a bit of like it's still a kind of an eclectic cast. I don't remember what the guy who is, I don't remember his name in the show. He's
Hmm.
supposed to be like he's supposed to be the Dark Forest guy, you know,
Hmm.
the one who is like a womanizer and smoking weed all the time.
Yeah. I don't
Also the
remember
black
where
one.
that guy's from either, and I don't
Yeah.
remember his accent off the top of my head. I remember there was like 2 or 3 British characters, and the rest are sort of international. Um, and I think it's good to have. I mean, if you're not going to have the original like Chinese cast, which I like, I don't think narratively is a bad idea to make it more international. I just think from a perspective of representation, you had an opportunity to put a bunch of Asian actors on screen, and I think it would have been cool to do that. But like narratively, I do think there is some upside to making it more of an international cast because it makes it feel like
Yeah.
more of the world is represented, right? And as we
Yeah,
move into
that's what I
these
was
future
thinking.
sort of crises, right, having perspectives from around the whole world kind of represented is cool, right? Is cooler. And it was something I kind of noticed a little bit reading the Three Body Problem. Is like it's the exact same bias that American movies have, right? It's like in the Three Body Problem, the whole world is like mostly China. Like there's not a lot of time spent on like how are people in Africa adapting to this or like something like that. You know, it's like mostly how is China adapting to this, and then there's UN meetings and like I don't, but like you know generally it's like all you know the same way that like when aliens want to invade the Earth, they always invade New York first for some reason.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, as you said, like the idea of like the whole world is coming together really, I think, makes the show better in that
Yeah.
sense. And there is still a big emphasis on China because of the one subplot about the Chinese character from the Cultural Revolution that is like absolutely embedded in China and in Chinese history.
Yeah, I mean
Like
that you
that
couldn't do
part
that
is
character any
untouched.
other way. Slash, if you did do
No.
that character any other way, it would be a bad change, right? It would be one of those
Yeah,
things where yeah, you
absolutely.
change it more than needed to be changed, and you really damage the legacy, right? At every change, you
Mhm.
have to look at how much narrative equity do I get, how much legacy damage do I get, and that would be one that where you'd be like, man, that really screws. That really doesn't feel like Three
That really
Body Problem
sucks.
anymore.
Yeah,
Because I
exactly.
mean that's one of the most interesting parts to me about Three Body Problem is reading about the Chinese Cultural Revolution and stuff like that, right?
Yeah,
It's
absolutely.
really interesting, and I think Cixin Liu has a unique ability to portray that time, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's really interesting. I've lost track a little bit. What was the point of this point? Like, what was the title
The
of this
point of
point?
this point was this is like a different medium and like how
Yeah,
the very like difficult challenge of adapting the three body problem with its cast scattered across like time and just like different just like characters who don't know each other
yeah,
was like adapted into a more streamlined Netflix sci-fi kind of like mystery drama because like it's not about action at all. It's a mystery drama. It's
yeah.
about like this cast of characters, their relations, and the unfolding mystery.
Very much not a Master Chief story.
Very much not
I
a
have
Master Chief story.
I have another example of adaptation where the medium is really important.
Okay, perfect. I had one more, but let's do yours and then let's just move on to part 3.
Okay. Avatar The Last Airbender is originally an animated show in which we visit a fantasy world inspired by where each Greek element it can be manipulated by different people. And it's originally an animated children's show that has then been produced into multiple live action adaptations, such as the ones you may have already seen us review on this podcast feed, but also better ones.
Yeah.
There have
So
been 2
tell me, Ceres,
adaptations.
what are the good changes that were made that you think are like, wow, they really nailed
There
it?
were bad changes made, and that's why I wanted to
What?
highlight the other side of the coin. Yes.
Oh no.
So,
But
basically, there were 2 adaptations. There was a movie that was released. There's the Netflix live action show, and then there's the original show. So we'll say movie, Netflix, or original.
well, when you say
So
there's multiple adaptations, there's 2 adaptations. The original show is the original show, like is the source material. There is no books that is space.
right, but I'm saying when we're comparing stuff, right? We'll say
Oh yeah,
the
yeah. There's
original,
3
we'll say
versions.
Netflix, and we'll say film. And so
Satan.
One of the main issues in both the movie and in Netflix is that the animated moving elements of earth and water, but particularly air, and to a lesser extent fire, look really good and satisfying and interesting and dynamic and fun in the original. However, in both live-action adaptations, they have to be replaced with CGI, which is generally not up to the task of making a photorealistic, but also a satisfying windstorm. And so I would say the main issue in the movie is that it's now nowhere close to photorealistic. It's just not plausible. It looks kind of goofy. But the Netflix one actually is much more photoreal, but yet still less satisfying. The animation, animated language that the original uses for the elements is just so good at feeling right, at feeling like it has the right amount of punch and weight, but also lightheartedness to show off the protagonist's different personalities.
Mm-hmm.
That is really hard to match. And so when you're thinking about adapting to a new medium, you should be aware of when the original story really used the strengths of the medium it was made for.
Yeah, absolutely. Avatar: The Last Airbender has never been adapted in a way that was satisfying, and that is definitely part of the issue. They just cannot, like, the live action just cannot live up, at least so far, has never been able to live up to the to the show. And it's funny how the M. Night Shyamalan effects are so much worse than the Netflix ones, but if I'm comparing them, it might almost come up on top on that topic, just because the M. Night Shyamalan movie aggressively refuses to show us any bending in most of the movie, and so at least it has a level of shame that Netflix
exactly, it hides. So I mean, one of the things, for those who've never seen it, in the original, airbending is like this kind of clear light blue that they use to represent air, and it looks like satisfying and clear. It picks up well on the page. You can see where the airbending is exactly happening and the complex shapes it's taking. And the main problem with the live action adaptations is wind isn't blue for some reason. You know what I mean? It's see-through. And if the main exciting thing that's happening in your scene is see-through, you're kind of screwed, right? But it's not only the visuals, right? Avatar: The Last Airbender, the original, has a plot that works very well in 20-minute children's TV show segments, where there's A-plot episodes and B-plot episodes, and this long-spanning adventure develops slowly over the course of 3 seasons. If you, for example, try to make it a TV show that only has 12 episodes instead of 22, you gotta cut a lot of fluff, and you have to make adaptations that might make your product worse. But you know what's even worse? Turning it into an hour and 22-minute movie or something like that. Well, I don't remember how long the movie adaptation is.
I think
the
it
movie,
was 2 hours, like it was.
Yeah, but the movie is just struggling to cover the ground that the TV show covers, because the TV show really uses its filler episodes and its main plot episodes to flesh out a world. And you have to be up to the task of condensing that, rewriting that, and changing the script, right?
Also,
so if
also Ceres, you wish it was 12 episodes. It's 8.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, sorry. I didn't watch the Netflix one to the end, so I assumed it had 12. My bad. It actually has 8. So it's even more condensation, right? And so it's
right.
You have to be up to that task. You have to realize that the all-star narrative of the original Avatar story, that is what your audience is expecting from you, is part of the legacy, is not actually a strength if the medium you're adapting it to requires you not to be able to have most of that, right? And so there are stories that are better, more and less adaptable. There are as if you're somebody who's adapting your media product, you should be aware of that. You should be looking is this story well adapted to a movie, well suited to a TV show? Because sometimes there is actually a lot of corollary. Sometimes it really is the case. Actually, this series of novels would make a great series of movies, right? But sometimes that's not the case, and you have to be aware of that. And it's that change in medium that can hurt you, right? That will require you then to make changes to your adaptation that then make your adaptation watchable in the first place.
Mm-hmm.
And if you start
Absolutely.
to get to so many changes just to make it watchable, you have to start to think, maybe this was better in the medium it was originally done, and I should adapt something that was, sort of okay in the medium it was done in, right? Or even bad
Yeah.
in the medium it was done in, right?
Yeah.
Like, for example, I think modern CGI is a great opportunity to redo, like, monster movies, right? Because we can do things at a scale and at a photorealness we never could before. So it's a great opportunity,
And that's
it's
why
not
those
necessarily
Godzilla
a new.
movies keep being made, even though I don't know why,
Yeah, exactly.
but
But
someone's
it's like,
still enjoying them.
we're going from movies to movies. I have to be honest, many of them I enjoy a lot, even though they're really stupid. I just love the visual spectacle of it, right? And it's like,
I like the
I
first
think it's,
two, and then I stopped when I stopped enjoying them. So to be
yeah.
honest, I haven't seen the one where they go in the Hollow Earth to fight the Monkey King.
Yeah, I
And
want
Shimo,
to watch
the
that
Ice
one.
Godzilla. Yeah.
I want to watch that one.
Okay, let me know.
That's got Godzilla X Kong, right? That's the new one.
Yeah, Godzilla v Kong. I haven't even seen Godzilla v Kong because I've seen some clips and I think that Mecha Godzilla looks like ass.
And there's nothing that'll turn Thea off of your product faster than a bad robot.
Yeah. Like, what are we?
Because
What are
Thea
we
knows
even
how
doing here?
robots are done right. But yeah, so like,
Well,
I think like it's just a medium shift, right? In the 80s, you can't make Godzilla the way that you can make Godzilla today. So even though it's like movie to movie, the medium has changed, and it is a medium shift, and one that actually super enhances your story, because most of your story's equity and legacy is just, imagine if a lizard was really fucking big, dude. And it's like, I can do that with a miniature and a guy in a suit, but you know what? With modern CGI, you can actually visualize that way better. So
yeah, absolutely. So, we'll quickly bounce back to your point on Avatar: The Last Airbender, because
sorry.
believe it or not, Avatar: The Last Airbender is one of my examples of adaptation.
Hey!
But not for this chapter, for the next one. Part 3, A Better Story. Sometimes the original story is not good, or is not as good, or is not as good for the medium you want to adapt it to, but you have an idea for how a similar story based on the same premise could work in a different medium. And I wasn't going to bring it up as the first example, but since we are on the Last Airbender train, I'm just going to stick to it. I think that one of the issues of M. Night Shyamalan's The Last Airbender is that it's too faithful to the original material. As in, it wants to like redo almost shot for shot scenes from the original show without really understanding them. Right? To me, that was particularly obvious in the scene where Zuko frees Aang from the chains, like when he goes in as the blue spirit. Like, that's very much like beat for beat the recreation of the original scene where they break out of the prison, but it's missing the context that they are supposed to be fighting together. And that
And
they're
in the
supposed to be
original,
struggling.
what we see is that
When
what we see in the original is that when they fight, they don't like, Aang doesn't know who Zuko is, right? So there's also a little bit of that imbalanced information. But what they notice about each other is that when they fight apart, they lose. When they fight together, they win. But and the whole context, of that is that these are supposed to be enemies, right? Zuko and Aang are enemies. Yet we see that when they work together, they're actually a really good team, and that when they work apart, they can't overcome the Fire Empire, right? So it's kind of a metaphor for the whole story of these two characters' relationship.
It's the Fire Nation, not the Fire Empire, you fake fan.
Oh, I'm sorry. Excuse me.
Maybe you were confused with the Earth Empire, which succeeds the Earth Nation under Kuvira in the Legend of Korra.
Ah, yes, Kuvira, the most wasted antagonist.
Yes.
All right, so that's what the context sort of the scene is, and in the show, what happens? Or sorry, the movie.
In the show, they are great, always. Sometimes they fight together, sometimes they fight next to each other. Really, it's more of a coincidence, I think. You
Yeah.
know, Aang just has so happened to stumble there,
Yeah.
but there is not. That's like especially Aang does so well. Remember when he's like trapped in that weird like circle of training, and he does all these moves as the
Yep.
Earth
Yeah.
soldiers like surround him and then choose to attack him one by one. Yeah,
Yeah.
he's doing so well. And I don't remember Zuko whether he struggles in particular, but like you definitely didn't get the sense that Aang and Zuko were better off fighting together.
Yeah.
So yeah, so that's one thing. But now I want to talk about stories that are better off as adaptations. First
Mm-hmm.
one, famous Blade Runner.
Mm-hmm.
Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep is a nice short story, but Blade Runner is a completely different story that is very loosely based on the premise of what if there were robots that are like undistinguishable for people and have all the same feelings, etc., except they're slaves and they're robots,
Yeah.
and they will die in 4 years, but they have fake memories. So they never know when they woke up for real. So they never know when their fourth year of life expires.
Yeah.
That's the premise. But Blade Runner is like a cyberpunk noir detective story. While the
One I
End of
am very
Dreams of
excited to
Electric Sheep is
watch.
not. Yeah, I hear very good things about the sequel, which surprised me. But you know, I buy it that they could make a good sequel from that movie.
Mm.
Another great one that you might not know is and it's an adaptation and also is very topical right now is Dragon Trainer, the
Oh,
DreamWorks
like what?
Hiccup.
Yeah. 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 Uh, I'm sorry. The title is only coming into my mind in another language. How to Train Your Dragon. How to Train Your
Sorry,
Dragon.
you're right. How to Train Your Dragon. How to Train Your Dragon. Sorry, not Dragon Trainer. I forgot. Yeah, yeah. How to Train Your Dragon.
Yeah.
That's it's originally it's a
Book.
book for children
It's actually a
about
series of books.
Vikings. Oh, it's a series
There's
of books for children, and
there's a
from
ton
what
of
I
them. I read
know,
them
the
actually.
premise is similar, but oh, interesting. And from what I know, the books is kind of like they're different, right? Like you seem to know more about them than I do. But like what I know is that the
Yeah.
premise is not Vikings and dragons like fighting each other. It's about how every Viking has to like
Yeah.
domesticate the
So
dragon,
the
tame a
the
dragon.
movie very elegantly produces an origin story for the status quo the book is about. So the book is, you're very right. The movie starts with Vikings and dragons are deadly enemies, and they try and they hunt. You know, the dragons steal from the Vikings hunt the dragons, and there's one brave boy who sees that his weaknesses and the dragon's weaknesses make them very much alike, and by teaming together, they can each compensate for their weaknesses and thus become a really good duo. And by him leading by example, he shows the rest of the Vikings how to do the same thing. And we learn to work together in harmony, which is, I think, a beautiful story and a really great way to adapt a thing. But it is absolutely true that the entirety of the books starts with that premise. What if every Viking had a dragon? How would they train them? And how do you train in this society? So it's a completely different sort of narrative, because the movie starts and the movie ends where the book kind of starts, and is kind of like this whole other sort of universe.
Yeah. Yeah, and good thing that the finale of the trilogy says actually no, we were never compatible in the beginning, and Hiccup was a fool.
Wait, really? Is that what happened in the? I watched movie 1, and I think I watched movie 2, because, I mean, besides the fact that movie 1 is, I think, is actually quite a good movie.
Yeah.
Movie 2 was like, at least we have sick ass dragons, right? I don't know if
Yeah.
I came back for movie 3. I don't know if the dragons were sick ass enough.
I watched movie 3 and 2 basically like one right after the other.
Mm-hmm.
Movie 3 has, I think, a more interesting villain,
Mm-hmm.
and I was surprised how in the end the villain was right.
Uh-oh.
And actually, our two races are not compatible, and we should each live where we come from. And the dragons just leave and all go to Dragon World, which is underground.
What?
I'm not kidding. No, that's the
Okay,
ending.
first off, break my heart, why don't you? Learning to live together with the dragons was an amazing lesson to learn, and this guy's wrong. I don't care what
No,
the movie
we
says.
were fools.
And
We were
B,
fools for.
Dragon World is underground, but they have
I know.
wings. It's so
They have
stupid.
It's these giant crystal caves underground with very beautiful colors, but like no, it's very weird. It's very weird.
But they make fire. That's the worst ability underground. Everybody just dies of suffocation.
Listen, I think that 3 for the most part is actually really cool and a better movie than 2. But that ending, the more I thought about it afterwards, I was like, what? I guess we're fools. We're fools all along. We should have been enemies all along.
It's like when you have a dream, and in the dream you're like, yeah, I guess this is how it is. And you wake up and you go, wait, that's the least plausible scenario I think I've ever heard of.
Yeah, it's I don't know.
Wait a minute. That's like it's the critical challenge after the fact. You're like, wait a minute. I just went along with this at the time, but I'm pretty sure you're completely wrong.
Yeah, it's also like, in the moment, the story does not like the story is obviously not trying to say that different people should not coexist and everybody should be in their own little fort, with their own little flag, right? That's
Sounds
kind of
like what they're saying.
to say. Well, that's the post-hoc interpretation when you take in consideration what the metaphor in the first movie was.
Yeah.
The third movie wants to be very much like growing up and leaving certain leaving a certain fairy tale aspect of the world behind, and like embarking on a journey into adulthood means leaving some things from your childhood behind. It's very much akin to how Peter and Susan cannot return to Narnia. They're too old. Narnia is a fantasy world about growing up, and it's a coming of age story, and they're too old to have a coming of age story. So that's the metaphor of movie 3. But the problem is how that works itself into the metaphor of movie 1, which is, hey, why don't there's a way to bridge differences and all get along, and we can all be better off for it. It doesn't have to be a zero-sum game.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's the ending. Anyway, I didn't want to ruin, and I'm sorry if anyone in the audience really likes Dragon Trainer 3. In general, I think it's a competent movie, but it's just like a weird. It just again works itself. It works itself in a very weird way into the metaphor for movie 1. But yeah. Final example of how, hey, this is cool, but also the story's kind of shit. What if we made it better? And call back to our very first episode, Arcane. I hear the lore of Arcane is not very good. The lore of the lore of League of Legends is not very good. I hear the lore of Arcane is great.
Yeah.
But I hear that the lore of League of Legends is not great. Can you confirm that?
I can't. I have never played League of Legends, but I have my experience playing Legends of Runeterra is that the lore is generally pretty paper thin. That it is really all about the League of Legends fighting one another, and they seem to fight each other for no particular reason, and just all the time. And they all have such strong personalities that they're kind of borderline insane. Right? You really think about it and you're like, this is not a reasonable human being making reasonable decisions. Because they're all so extreme, each in their own way, right? Because it's like, this is Gatling gun lady, and this is punchy lady, right? And this is sniper lady, right? And so all of them is kind of very one note and very extreme in that one note, yeah,
absolutely. I think
which gave me whiplash watching Arcane because characters can be so nuanced, right? And when I would see some of the lines that they would give Vi in Legends of Runeterra, where she just like shows up in a foreign port trying to find information, and she's like, well, she doesn't look around at all. She just goes, she lands at the port, and the first thing she does is she goes, well, best way to find out is probably with a brawl. And she just beats a guy up. I was like, holy shit, Vi, what are you doing? What is going on? What happened to you?
Yeah, I feel like in season 2, the authors really didn't want to make Vi a cop. But they were like, we have to do it, but she's gonna be a cop for as little as possible, okay?
Yeah. And so I think you're right? Like, so, I mean, all of that to say, right, the reason that I said that about the lore of Legends of Runeterra, which I think is a great game, but I don't believe the lore is very strong, right, is that to make a really good TV show like Arcane, they have to kind of disregard a lot of that lore / how characters are represented, and they decide to go for a way more grounded approach, a way more nuanced approach. And yeah, characters end up like Jinx kind of ends up in the show how she is in the game.
Not even, right? Like they don't even end up there. They briefly stay in that space and then they evolve past that.
Exactly.
Jinx
and most of the story is them.
Vi does
Yeah,
not,
exactly.
no one ends where they are in the show.
Yeah, you're right. So like basically the League of Legends peaking is sort of their climax. Is usually like during their climax, they are how they are in League of Legends. So most of the show, they're not like that because we're building up to the climax. And then even at the end of the show, the status quo is they've moved beyond that because we moved beyond the climax.
Yeah, like by the time Victor only becomes the victor from the game in like the final episode of the entire show. But by that point, Vi hasn't been an enforcer for 8 episodes.
Yeah.
And Jinx has basically like evolved past her Jinx persona as well. And so like Jace stops being the golden boy inventor of Piltover in season 1.
Yeah.
And is mostly a politician, and then what does he do? Oh yeah, he plays Dark Souls.
Exactly.
He does. He's in Dark Souls.
Yeah, it's interesting also, like in the League of Legends lore, as far as I can tell, Jace is just kind of, I don't fully get him. I think he's kind of an Iron Man analog. But Iron Man is you have to be very delicate with Iron Man to make him likable, despite how he behaves, right? Despite how he unilaterally, militarily polices the planet based on his own private, personal technology that he has developed and uses only for the purposes of said supervillains.
Yeah, I love Iron Man 2 because like Iron Man 2 was like the US government cannot be trusted with like really advanced weaponry with like that by far exceeds what anybody else on the planet has. And like, yes, I can see that. But then the answer is I should have it.
Yeah, this individual. So one person should control it. Because who could have a better perspective on all the global issues of the world than one individual?
Than one individual who is a weapons merchant, or like who just stopped being a weapons merchant,
recovering weapons merchant.
Yeah, exactly. He goes to Weapons Merchant Anonymous.
Yeah,
my name is Tony Stark, and I founded the Iraq War.
Just last week, I was tempted to sell someone a Glock in a parking lot.
Yes. Was it a normal Glock? No, it was a Glock with a power suit attached to it. Thank you for your honesty, Tony. Here, have an honesty chip. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I remember when a friend of mine who's like also like he plays League of Legends but like despises the lore.
Yeah.
Told me about Jinx before Arcane was out, so I had no context, and like all I knew about Jinx was like what he told me that day, and what he told me like, yeah, they're really riding kind of like the Harley Quinn like popularity craze with this new character who is like very Harley Quinn-esque. She's crazy, she's a manic pixie dream girl, she has every mental disorder under the sun, and she does a lot of drugs and kills people for fun.
Yeah.
That was Jinx for me. And then, you watch Arcane and it's like this poor girl that you just want to adopt and tell her that it's gonna be fine, and then she murders her entire family. And like, oh my god! And like she doesn't even do drugs. The drug part of the lore comes in when they inject her with Shimmer to save her life, which gives her that kind of like super speed buff.
Yeah,
but like. Yeah,
no, she's completely different, right? If the show was just trying to do that, scene 1 would be Jinx snorting a bunch of drugs and going out and blasting people. Instead, scene 1 is like, all right, so let's get into that really deep childhood trauma this character has.
Yes. Look at all this unfulfilled potential.
Yeah.
Could we do something out of this? Could she kill her father with it? I think she could kill her father with it.
So I think the memo of this section, right? And so like if we also briefly talk about How to Train Your Dragon, it's a great little book series for kids, where for kids it's like, hey, imagine everybody had a dragon. What dragon would you have? Right?
Yeah.
You're like, ooh, cool, right? And it works as a children's book, right? But the children's movie that deviates heavily from the book that says, actually, let's get to the status quo first, and let's talk about how sometimes kids have like either disabilities or just things that they're not as good at as they would like to be good at, like a very relatable child experience. You're not as strong as you'd like to be, as tall as you'd like to be. You're not as capable of not dropping the glass of water, even when you're told to be careful, right? And see that actually that weakness can be a strength when you team together with friends who can help you with things that you're bad at, right? Like, how many kids like are either literally disabled or are just like bad at math, right? You know, and who can then like watch this movie and think to themselves, oh, so what I need to do is I need to find friends who are the same like me, and we can team up together, and together we'll be stronger. And I don't have to be mean to those people because they're different from me. Actually, the fact that they're different from me makes it really good. It makes a cooperative partnership because they can fulfill my, where I'm weak, they're strong, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, I think it's a better movie than just being like, oh, imagine each of these Vikings had a dragon, right? And so, yeah, it kind of discards a lot of the legacy of How to Train Your Dragon. And if, like me, you watch the movie and you really like the movie, and then you read the book and you're like, wait a second, what, you know?
Yeah,
it does
this is
create
not
this
the same.
disconnect, but I would say that How to Train Your Dragon children's book were not at the popularity level where they were bringing the legacy that it's unreasonable to adapt it in this way. And I think if you end up with a much better story, you can still call it.
And that brings us back to point one: respect the legacy. Did How to Train Your Dragon doesn't have like a big enough legacy where it's like, oh boy, they changed so much, and the fans are like rabid.
Yeah,
it's a children's book of like all right popularity, right?
yeah. As far as I know, I never heard anybody talk about it, to be honest, before the movie came out. So
Yeah.
I think it was pretty, like, I'm sure there were people who liked it quite a lot, but I don't think it was broadly popular.
Yeah. All right, I think that we had a very nice discussion here, and like looking at the time, I think that we can call it here.
Yeah.
Unless you have something else to add. I had a bonus section talking about remakes, but honestly, I think we're good.
All right. Yeah, I agree. So
we had nothing I would say about the remakes isn't something that we've already said in another way in the first minutes.
So let's summarize. What are the cardinal rules for making a good adaptation?
I mean, first, respect the legacy. Is you have, when you adapt something, you are using the fact that you're adapting a beloved original material as a point, as advertisement, and a reason why your audience should come see the thing that they like. So you should strive to give them the experiences they seek and that they expect when they're coming to watch a Lord of the Rings movie, a Halo show, or a Fallout show, or the Last of Us show, or whatever show.
Yeah, if Johnny's Burrito Shop only sells pizza, I don't care how good the pizza is. You're lying to people, and it's annoying.
Yeah, exactly. And conversely, if there's not such a huge legacy, of course, you don't have that burden.
I think also part of respecting the legacy, right, is understand your legacy.
Sure.
And probably be a fan of the legacy that you're being saddled with, right? Like,
yeah, if you think that the original material is shit, unless you're doing like some kind of satire like Starship Troopers, it's gonna be really hard.
Yeah.
For you to pull it off. Did I already tell you? Do you know that you know the story about Kevin Feige in the X-Men movies?
No.
So the X-Men movies, like 1 and 2, are made by Bryan Singer, who shout out, turned out to be a huge piece of shit. Google that if you want need to. But Bryan Singer in those movies is not so secretly ashamed of making a movie that is based on a superhero in blue and yellow spandex. Because he told me that when the Cyclops said, "Oh, what, you would have preferred blue and yellow spandex to these sick ass black leather suits,
to these tight leather battle costumes."
Yeah, is this reminding you of the Matrix already? Yeah. And
tell me, do I look like a Dom in this?
Yeah. Are you taking me seriously right now, Logan? You think Jane would like it? So yeah, apparently he had told the actors.
Gene, by the way, you fake fan.
Yeah, a fake fan. He told explicitly the fans, the actors, to not read X-Men comics.
Yeah.
Avoid familiarizing themselves with the source material, and he did not want to give Logan the Logan hair, the Wolverine hair. And Kevin Feige, who at the time was a producer on that, who, for those who don't know, Kevin Feige is the architect of the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
He's the god.
Yeah,
the founding god of the MCU.
Yeah, he never made a single mistake. Back then, Kevin Feige, who was much more of a fan of this, clearly, in my opinion, he was going around like to the trailers of the actors and slipping secretly comic books under like their
smuggling comic books.
Smuggling comic books, and he insisted for the Wolverine hair.
What are these, nudie mags? No, this is X-Men. Fantastic X-Men #1.
Yeah, and it's Uncanny X-Men, by the way. It's Uncanny X-Men.
I don't. Do they change adjectives? Because I know with Spider-Man, they just change adjectives whenever they want.
Well, usually it's amazing. That's the traditional one.
No, I've seen Ultimate.
Ultimate is something different. Ultimate is not the name of Spider-Man. Ultimate Spider-Man is like Ultimate Avengers, Ultimate X-Men. The Ultimate series was like the universe reboot of like the early 2000s. Ultimate is not the Ultimate Spider-Man. It's Ultimate whatever.
Yeah, no, but I remember lots of different blanks. No.
Spectacular. I think Spectacular is one that they gave him at some point. Spectacular Spider-Man because it's alliterative, but amazing.
Yeah, no. All right, wait. Here, because I know this because of Magic, the Gathering.
When they have the cards about Spider-Boy.
Yeah, Arachnoid Human.
Arachnoboy.
Yeah, so they've got the Sensational Spider-Man, right? They've got the Sensational Spider-Man, they have the Amazing Spider-Man, they have there's also the they have obviously your Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man. They've got a whole bunch of different Spider-Man, and I know that there's also times when Spider-Man had a different name, like when Dr. Octopus inhabited him.
Superior Spider-Man.
Yeah, exactly. It's a superior Spider-Man. So, like, I don't know, Spider-Man gave me the impression that, like, basically for every new narrative, you can change the adjective to sort of indicate, like, this is not the same universe or not the same, it's, canonicity. So I don't know which ones they've done for X-Men, because I never read X-Men. So, yes, I am a big fan of X-Men.
Uncanny. Yeah, you are. Sure are. Okay. Yeah. So, anyway, that's point 1. To summarize. Yeah. Point 2, a different medium.
Wait, let me do point 2 because I didn't fully understand point 3, so I'll leave that one to you. So point 2, a different medium. You need to, when you adapt from one medium to another, you need to be aware how the new medium strengthens the narrative, how the new medium weakens the narrative, and what changes it forces you to do. And if the legacy point is really all about what you should keep, it's really the aspects of medium where you need to think about what you need to change in order to make your narrative superior or even watchable to begin with.
Yeah. And we brought up Three-Body Problem and Lord of the Rings and Avatar, and like I want to give a shout out to 2001: A Space Odyssey, because it's a special case where like the book and the movie were written at the same time, because Kubrick and Clarke wrote them together, and then they went off in different directions to make the same story in book and movie form.
Another movie I really want to watch.
Yeah. It's quite the trip. I absolutely recommend reading the book as well, because like you don't understand so many things in the movie, because the movie is such a psychedelic experience. Anyway, and then part 3, a better story. Sometimes the original material, there's a better version of the story of the original material. Sometimes your medium allows you to tell a very different story that the original medium just like couldn't have or didn't want to do. And you can just look at something and say, hey, this is cool. Wouldn't it be interesting if it was this other thing, though, that is similar but not the same? And you can pull it off well. And I think it requires, of course, knowing that, that you have a good story on your hands. And we brought up like How to Train Your Dragon here as an example of how a beloved children book series was turned into like a more mature child movie series that can be enjoyed by adults because it's more mature and more nuanced and more interesting. And that it was done by doing some pretty big changes to the first book. Other examples include Arcane, which is a loose adaptation of the lore of Legends of Runeterra, but is not really good lore. Like
Mm.
it's more of an aesthetic almost. And Blade Runner is, like, of course, a very beloved sci-fi movie based on a very different short story by Phil K. Dick, which essentially only takes the core idea of the
Yeah.
short story and writes a different story around it.
All right.
Yeah.
So, with all of that summarized, those are our thoughts on adaptation. Do you have anything you want to plug?
Nothing comes to mind, but I know you have something to plug.
I'm going to plug camping, you guys. I just came back from a camping trip. It was really awesome. It reminded me of how much I like camping. Even though it was physically exhausting and it rained on us and all sorts of other stuff happened, I feel so mentally refreshed. It feels like imagine if your life was the work week and then camping was a weekend. You're like, all of a sudden I feel recharged, re-energized, and refocused. So I love being out in nature, and I think I'm going to go camping a little bit more often than I have been recently, because I really enjoyed this camping trip. And 2 nights, Friday night and Saturday night, and then Sunday morning it rained on us, so we headed out of there early. We had to switch campsites in between. It's hard to camp in the area that I'm in. You can't just camp freely in the forest. There's very specific areas you can camp, and lots of them are just kind of like a big green field where like 120 people are camping, and I don't really like that experience. I prefer the sort of more secluded, off the beaten path camping experience. I understand that of course has environmental impact. There's a reason it's rare, and you have to be respectful of the environment that you're in when you're in those more secluded areas. And so while I trust myself with it, I understand how like it's not as common because people as a broad group, can't always be trusted with that. But anyways, so we basically had one camping site for one night and another camping site for another night because the availability is just that way. So we had to move between the two. But we hiked, we talked, we hung out. It's great to like physically exert yourself and have a bit of a challenge, sort of an artificial scarcity that sort of peels away a lot of the unnecessary decision making of everyday life. Do I want to eat this or that? You're going to eat what you pack, right?
Yeah.
While at the same time having this effect that when you come back from that artificial scarcity, you're like, oh man, central heating, a nice cold shower, soap, surfaces on which I can lay my shit, right? Like one of the main inconveniences of the forest is just that like it's not flat and clean the way all the surfaces in your house are usually.
Yeah.
So, but at the same time, it has this isolation from everyday life that I find can be really meditative, right? Just be like, I need to walk from A to B for the next 4 hours. So for the next 4 hours, nothing's changing on my to-do list. It's walk there. And you really get to think, and I don't know, I feel like it unlocks a broader perspective, right? And just getting to be in nature, I find super relaxing and beautiful. So go camping. You may like it. I liked it.
Yeah.
That's why I'm telling you about it.
Yeah. I don't really have a plug, but I have a shout out because it's something I haven't seen yet, but I've been excited for.
And to be fair, a lot of this episode is just plugging different adaptations or not plugging them. So.
In a way, yeah, or unplugging them.
Yeah, unplugging them, taking them off life support, murdering adaptations.
I wish Shyamalan had taken his avatar off life support when he had the chance.
But what's the shout out?
The shout out is Predator: Killer of Killers. It's a Disney Plus original. It's Disney, but it's like Disney 20th Century Fox Disney.
Yeah.
And it's a movie that was done by the same guy who made Prey, which is in another direct-to-streaming movie that is Predator, but what if it was the 18th century and it was about Comanche people and French hunters and a predator. And Predator: Killer of Killers is a movie, but I think it should be a miniseries because it's an anthology actually of like shorter stories. So I don't know why it's a movie. It's animated, and the animation style looks very cool. And it's an anthology throughout history of like picking a specific era and going like, what if we did Predator, but in with World War I ace pilots? What if we did Predator, but in Sengoku era Japan with samurais?
Yeah.
You know? What if we took this like in period with a specific aesthetic and a specific like way to do violence and war, and we just like threw a predator in there, and we had some like fights with honorable prey, as they would put it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So
I actually saw it, and I thought to myself, this is the stupidest title ever. Why are they still making these? So maybe I'll actually watch it now that I've heard your positive review of it. It sounds interesting.
I mean, as I said,
it sounds a little bit like What If, you know?
It's
like
it's very much. Yeah. It's a shout out. It's not a plug because I haven't seen it. But
Oh, I
it's
see.
the same guy. It's the same guy who made Prey, and I thought Prey was nice. So this to me is like, oh, they did the natural follow up to Prey, which is like, wait, you're allowed to do this at any time of history. Well, we're gonna have fun with it then.
Yeah.
Because it's very much What If, right? It's not anymore. It's a horror movie about the Predator, because we know Predators. We know Predators so well by now. So now it's more like, wouldn't you want to see a samurai fight a Predator for 20 minutes and then we move on to something else? It's like, yeah, I would like to see that.
Well, you either live long enough to die a hero or something. End of plug.
Yeah.
Alrighty, folks. That'll just about do it.
Can you imagine if they made like a Terminator movie? And it was like, wait, what if we went even further back in time and just do Terminators keep going back down the lineage of Sarah Connors?
Yeah.
And like, what if we killed the great-grandfather?
What if we killed the great-great-grandfather?
Yeah, and then it's like Terminator with cowboys.
What if we go back to the first physiologically modern human?
Well, you can't do that, because then you don't get Skynet. Right? That's self-destruction. You need to find like the earliest possible time where you can mess with the timeline without affecting the birth of Skynet.
That's probably not too far back, to be honest. Like,
probably
if you go more than like a few hundred years, you're like out of luck already.
In the second Terminator movie, they actually implied that like the first Terminator movie accidentally caused Skynet to be invented sooner, because the corpse of the first Terminator is like found by a tech company, and they start developing AI faster thanks to it. So a big plot point of Terminator 2 is like finding this guy and like convincing him to like destroy all the remnants of the Terminator that he found. And then the Terminators of that movie are like, they make sure to kill them all by melting them into lava.
Huh. That is a weird time paradox. But that'll just about do it for episode 40 of the podcast. If you want more, you can find us on youtube.com/@afriendlyorbit, as well as Spotify and Apple Podcasts. And if you happen to have any Astral Echoes you want to share with us, you can email us at afriendlyorbit@gmail.com. All one word.
All right, Ceres. I'll talk to you later, and to all of our fellow Voyagers, we will catch you out there amongst the stars.